Living Clean is a presentation of the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness and is brought to you by Vita Novus Treatment Centre and Addictions 911.
Hi everyone and welcome to Living Clean. I'm your host Glenn Allen. Today on the program we will be talking about sexual abuse, and we will be talking about addictions, because in so many cases there is that correlation. And joining me on the set to discuss that and a lot more is Mark Elliot. Mark, welcome to the program.
Welcome back.
Yeah, it's great to see you. It has. And you know, the two of us share a lot in common. We both kind of fell in a public eye, and mine more local. But you know what, we both went through, and I really want to, and Jeff, if you can, those studio phone numbers, we want to get them up early. And just like last week, and I just plead with our viewers that you get on the phones early and often, because we want to take your phone calls as soon as we can, okay? And don't wait, because like last week, they filled up so fast. And
I just had one of those feelings though when you said, I want to say, Jeff, do you want to, I thought you were going to roll some old piece of videotape of Mark Elliot denying that he was on drugs on national television.
Oh, no, that's another show. That will be around April Fool's next year.
Thank you.
But the studio lines are up on the screen right now. Please, if you have gone through sexual abuse and you are looking for assistance, if you're going through addiction, we're here tonight to take your phone calls. If you have gone through sexual abuse and you have found hope on the other side, we want to hear from you as well, because you know, and especially for like May is Sexual Violence Awareness Month. And I don't know if you know that or not.
I didn't know that.
And one of the things that, well, the OPP and the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness is working on in particular is male sexual victimization. Mm-hmm. And there's a conference that is upcoming in the Hamilton Stony Creek area on May 12th, which is filled to capacity. 300 people are attending. Right. And there are 5 others, and we'll get to those later on in the program, that the people in Ontario can get to. And we know that there are places for the women and children to go to. And if you're female and you're looking for a place to go to because you've suffered through sexual abuse, and you're suffering with addictions now, or whatever the case may be, we want to try to help you too. But in particular, the men. Because for generations, as we both know, Mark, mm-hmm. Especially in recovery, the guys haven't had a place to go to talk about it.
Well, here's the twist. I go way back with this, because when I started becoming aware of what had happened to me, it was as I was working with a lady who I was married to at the time. I was going through training with Rape Crisis Center. And one of the paradoxes of the rape crisis centers at the time back in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s when these came about, was not all the calls were coming from women. Mm-hmm. Many of the calls were coming from men, and they did not know how to handle them. And there was suddenly this awareness that something that had not been public, had always been a secret, was suddenly coming out of the woodwork. And nobody was prepared for it. So I commend the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness for their work in bringing this to light. And certainly more and more people are coming forward. But it's fascinating to me, because I host shows on addiction all the time, to hear you start by talking about sexual abuse. It's usually the last thing that a man wants to come out with. Yeah. That's the last thing that he wants to pull out. He doesn't want to pull out the fact that he was victimized.
It's a deep, dark secret.
Oh, and the most secret of secrets. People don't understand. I've been asked many times, and I'm sure you have too, in light of what's been going on with the Catholic Church, is there an end to this? And the answer is no. In fact, it's going to get worse. That's the tragedy. we're watching what's going on now, and as this awareness becomes more current, more and more people are having the courage to come out and start talking about what they experienced and how they survived. It's actually really amazing people do. I know myself, I can think of so many times, thankfully I was lousy at suicide.
And that's...
And I'm saying that bluntly because that's
you're very
really
serious about it, because
you know, when a person is dealing with issues like this, and I went through this once when I was in early recovery. I was dealing with a counselor, and we were having lunch together, and he was talking to a lawyer. I was in a child custody case at the time, and he knew that I had been sexually abused when I was a young boy, and he took that and extrapolated on that fact and went on and said, well, you cracked up when you were about 12. When you hit adolescence, you started having nervous breakdowns. You fell apart, thought you were gay, got scared, went back into the closet, got married, had kids, broke up, fell apart again, couldn't figure out which way was up. And I was eating a hamburger. I dropped it on the floor. It was like, what are you talking? How do you know all this? He was rhyming off my life. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I'm sitting there, and he looks at me and says, kid, you come out of a textbook. Well, that textbook wasn't written when I was a kid. You know, this nowadays we know and we'd understand. I think if a teacher was faced with a child like me, if anybody with any knowledge of child psychology was faced with children like we were, then they would recognize the symptoms because they were so plain.
Yep.
Now I can see them. And, you know, sadly at that time, those same books hadn't been written. So, you know, we have the advantage of awareness, we have the advantage of the knowledge, and amazingly, the more people talk about it, the healthier we are.
Yeah. And one of the things, too, that I really want to get out there again is the need for I'm doing a peer support group for adult male survivors of childhood sexual abuse in out of the Southwestern Ontario office of the CCAA in Stoney Creek. And if you're in the Stoney Creek, Hamilton, or surrounding areas, and as a adult male, and you want to know more about that, the information is on your screen. Okay, so it's really important that if you want to email me or call me, I'll be in the office tomorrow. It's really, really important that you don't suffer in silence anymore. Okay, this has been put on my heart to a big part of why I believe I've been given a second chance, probably 102nd chance. 12 years ago, you know, the alcohol, cocaine, very much like your story. There's so many of us. We all have similar stories, and we're going to hear more about Mark's story and his fall from grace. But in my fall from grace, but you know what? What's really great is we do have a second chance, and here we are making a difference. Mark, on the air, people helping people, Saturday nights, 11 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Saturday nights. And, you know, in being an addiction counselor and doing your interventions, and when we're all giving back is what I'm trying to say. So please, the number's on your screen right now. If you need help, call that. Get on the phone lines tonight. If you want to call in and discuss it, please get on the phone lines right now. And again, I know that you're going to understand this is life and death. People die, and this is not a show to prank. This is a show where we try to help people. And it's really important that we get to as many phone calls as we can. We're going to take a time out right now. We're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to come back with your phone calls. You're watching Living Clean. We're going to be right back.
Statistics state that it is likely you know a victim of abuse. It could be a friend, a relative, a colleague. It could even be you. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. Please give them hope. Help us make it stop. Go to abusehurts.com and give to the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness.
Hi, I'm John Haynes. I'm the director of Vita Novus Treatment Center. We are dedicated to saving lives of the suffering addicts and alcoholics and their families. Our counselors provide one-on-one care and the attention that you need. There is never a wait. We have a room available for you now. Give us a call. We make treatment affordable. Your life is worth saving. Every life is worth saving.
Is someone else's drinking affecting your life? Does it make you feel angry?
Don't yell at me because you're mad at your mom. She's the drunk, not me.
Does it make you feel sorry for yourself?
Hey, Tanya's drinking again, and maybe next time.
Or does it even make you feel
Does
frightened?
Daddy have to drink so much?
No matter how you feel, we can help. We're Al-Anon family groups, and we know what it's like. Just call 1-888-4-AL-ANON. To help them, you have to help yourself first.
And welcome back to Living Clean. Glenn Allen, Mark Elliott. Just talk a little bit just before we go to the phones. And again, Jeff, if you can't put the numbers up there, there's some room on the lines, and we want to get your calls as quickly as we can. Talk a little bit about what you're doing, and of course the radio show on 1010 CFRB.
I've been doing people helping people now, and actually this year we're celebrating our 15th year on the air. And I started the show in 1995 in Windsor, Detroit, and moved it to Toronto in 2000. And we're on News Talk 1010 every Saturday night at 11 p.m. It's amazing because I thought when this whole thing began that I've been in radio since I was 16. And I assumed that when I went on the air and said, I'm Mark, I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic, it might last 2 weeks. I thought people would get sick of my story. 15 years later, we're still going strong.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and every week there is something new. Every week there's somebody on the phones. We talk about addictions. I speak about them in the first person, but I also speak about them now as a certified addiction counselor. And when you're talking about addiction, when you're talking about any kind of addiction, one of the key points to it, which all of us eventually get to, is the kind of trauma that led to the addiction itself. How many times have you heard somebody say, well, I went through sexual abuse when I was a kid, and I didn't end up on drugs, I didn't end up an alcoholic. And I hear this and I get people and they'll say that and I go, that's great. I'm glad for them that that didn't happen. But there are certain people that everybody is affected differently. Mm-hmm. Every single person is affected differently. So you get certain people who are affected so badly that they seem to be more sensitive. The more sensitive you are, the more crazy you go with all the abuse, with dealing with the problems, trying to figure out which way is up and which way is right. And it seems like when I get into it and I start dealing with some of the craziest, and I'm talking about people who are so heavily addicted to some of the strongest drugs imaginable, when I get into it, I start finding out that I've got very, very sensitive people who are taking a huge dose of anesthetic in order to shut off all their feelings. Mm-hmm. And the key to recovery, of course, is to turn your feelings back on, to start feeling your feelings rather than drugging them. So the whole point of this is to start living your life, and it's amazing how you can feel without them. And I can say that from personal experience, so can you.
But and you know what, we talked before the program, we were talking about fear.
Yeah.
You know, being able to feel whether they're, sitting down with a counselor and talking about those things that happen to us without being able to medicate.
Well, here's the thing.
That's a scary proposition.
Here's the thing. You meet a person and you sort of, you sound a person out and you start to get to know them, and then eventually you find out who they are. Whereas I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. You're an alcoholic and a drug addict. We understand each other clearly. We know each other. You don't have to tell me anything. You're not going to tell me anything I haven't done or haven't thought of. Mm. You're not going to tell me an experience that I haven't been through. All of us have had those thoughts. We may not have done the same things, but certainly we've had the same experiences, and we do understand each other.
But and I want to make something clear here too, because I talked about my peer support group in the Hamilton area, out in Stony Creek. There's also some groups, Lynn McDonnell, who works side by side with the CCAA. She has some groups for adult male survivors as well in Toronto, and there's some other ones out the Toronto way as well. And it's really important for the guys to know that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the men will tell me when they finally get into that room is they may have been in other rooms, like you just said, whether it's alcohol and drugs, where we understand one another. But it's when they get into that same room where they're with other men who have been sexually abused,
Right.
right? Because it's the same as when you're like, your family can help you to a point. A 12-step group or an aftercare group or whatever can help you to a point. It's when you come to that point of dealing with your sexual abuse, when you're in that room with other people who have been there and done it, it's a different dynamic.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, if
And
you're
that's
an
what,
alcoholic,
and that's what we need. That's what we need funding for. These are the things that need to happen for the men.
you have an alcoholic, and they identify with the other alcoholic. You have a
Exactly.
cocaine addict. They identify with another cocaine addict. You have a survivor of sexual abuse. We identify with each other because the feelings and this, the kind of trauma that we've been through, we can relate to.
Yeah.
And we can empathize. We can empathize with the other person. We can understand exactly where they've been, what they've been through.
Yeah. Let's go to Andy on line 5. He's in Mississauga. Andy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks, guys, but I'm having some small problems.
Yeah,
well,
what's up?
actually, they're huge at this point.
Go ahead.
Hello?
What's wrong?
Yeah, go
Andy?
ahead.
Yeah, with the alcoholism and so forth, I've pretty much kicked that. But it's the addiction to the OxyContins that's really killing me.
So you've stopped drinking, but now you're using Oxy.
Well, I've been on them for quite some time for the damage to my body from meningitis and some after effects of motor vehicle accidents.
Okay, how old are you, Andy?
I'm 37,
Okay, and how long have you been taking them?
since about 99.
Okay, and are you taking them, are they prescribed for the pain?
Oh, definitely. They're prescribed for the pain, but, it's to the point where I'm up at around 280 milligrams at every couple hours, and I'm having to snort them in order to just to keep the pain down and to try and maintain some kind of sense about the pain that I'm dealing with. And some of it is mental, and the rest of it is physical.
Some of it is mental. Oxycontin is vilified in the press. I get calls all the time from people, and they're taking it for legitimate pain. They're taking it for legitimate reasons. They're dealing with horrendous problems,
Yep.
like cancer or like, recovery from an accident. And they're terrified by the stories that they see. When a person is using drugs prescribed for legitimate reasons, that is not addiction. That's not addiction. We're not talking about drug abuse. We're talking about legitimate drug use. And too often, I'm hearing people who are throwing their pills away and suffering because they're terrified, I'm going to get addicted. I'll tell you what, get rid of the pain and, get well, and then we'll worry about getting you off the drug. What I care about is whether or not a person is using the drugs recreationally. I'm glad that Andy was able to do something about his alcoholism. I'm sorry to hear that you're still dealing with the pain. But one of the things that you have to do in a situation like this is get the best advice that you possibly can, and that's probably to get to a pain clinic.
Yeah.
I mean, I had horrendous problems where I was dealing with degenerative disc disorder. It's horribly painful. They prescribed OxyContin. I didn't like it. I hate to say it, I like my brain. It's nice when I'm not a marshmallow and I can think. I went to a pain clinic and I said, you gotta have something other than this. And surprisingly, they had a drug called Tramadol. And I've been taking Tramadol ever since. And amazingly, it works just as effectively. It gets rid of the pain. And I'm not doped out of my brain. So.
Yeah. Andy, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Okay, the situation is I'm not doped out on my brain or anything like that. I function fantastic.
Yeah.
I can think great. I can drive. I don't fall asleep or anything like that. It's just that I'm afraid. I'm generally afraid that it might lead to something else because I have had problems with weed in the past. Again, that was another one. I kicked that. The cocaine use, done away with that. So it's just that I'm afraid that if I'm using this as a crutch, and if it's going to get any worse, because I hear all these people talking about, oh, OxyContin's going to screw you up, in a sense that you can never get off of it.
But
Andy,
are
Andy,
you using it as a crutch though, buddy?
Andy, are you chewing the pills? Are you crushing them?
I'm crushing them up, yeah, and snorting them and chewing them.
Why are you not taking them the way they're prescribed?
Well, the thing is, I've got a lot of problems with my stomach that was damaged up from the disease of that I was telling you about earlier. And it left me with brain damage, problems with my legs, swelling. It's horrible at the condition that I'm living in right now. And I have legitimate problems with the pain.
Okay, I'm not a doctor, but I'll tell you this. You're taking your medication and you're abusing it. When you crush it, you're releasing all of the ingredient. If you're taking 80s, you're getting 80 milligrams at once. It's supposed to be administered over 12 hours.
You really?
Every time you do that, you know, you're taking the medication and basically you're going to say, I'm going to be pain-free for 3 hours and then I'm going to go right back and I'm going to have to use again. You're defeating the purpose of the medication. I mean, this is one of those things, you know, you're looking for medical advice and you're going to have to talk to your doctor. You're going to have to be dealing with a pain specialist. You're going to have to find some way around this because what you're doing right now is defeating the purpose.
Okay, Ann? Yeah, he's gone. Thanks, Andy. And the doctor, it's really important that you talk to your doctor, buddy.
OxyContin is pharmaceutical grade heroin. We're not talking about taking codeine. We're talking about taking heroin. We're talking about a drug which is incredibly dangerous. You take 80 milligrams. He's saying he's taking 2 at a time. He's taking 160 milligrams straight. That 160 milligrams is supposed to be dosed out over a period of 12 hours. The drug was invented so that people who used to take a handful of pills now just had to take one. I mean, nobody was setting out to make a drug that was going to be a scourge on the streets and was going to cause all the problems that it has. In fact, one of the things that is going on right now, they're looking at, and I want to say tamper-proof, but it's not a tamper-proof version. It's a tamper-reduced. It's a reduced risk version of OxyContin. It's actually sticky oxy. And this has just been approved by the FDA in the United States. What happens is they mix the drug now with another substance called Remoxy. And it makes it sticky so a person can't snort it. But you're always going to have the problem of people who will take handfuls of pills. I mean, you stop them using it one way, they'll use it another way.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was reading an article that you did last year that you were part of in the Toronto Sun, and there was they spoke with an addict, right. and he summed it up. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
You know, if an addict wants to do something, they're going to do it. One of the things I wanted to follow up on before we hit the 12 o'clock hour, and I wanted to do it at the top of the program, and we got talking last week on the program. Right towards the end of the show, there was a fella named Don who called from Welland. And Don called in and he was at the end of his rope.
Yeah.
And he was crying, he was asking for help. And last week John Haynes and Marla Goldman were on. And they both followed up with him. And I just wanted to let our viewers know that Don was followed up with by Vita Novus, and he is now safe, and is a part of their program.
Excellent.
So Don, with the courage we know, the courage that it takes somebody who's either going to harm themselves, and they can pick up the phone and call into a show and ask for help while they're crying, a grown man or woman can do that. I think that is so awesome.
I always think it's amazing people have trouble picking up the phone and calling an anonymous helpline like Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, yet they'll pick up the phone and call some showboat like me, and they'll pour their heart out on the air. And if that is, you know, it's amazing how many resources there are where you don't have to take that risk, where you are anonymous. And the thing that is the key when dealing with people who are abused is the anonymity. And that factor has to be emphasized over and over again, that what you say to the people that you call, whether it's CCAA or whether you're in a group like yours, is that it is said and it stays in the room. It's not to be passed out.
And I think it's really important on your show, this show, and when we take time to speak with people, they know that we're serious. We know that we care.
Sure.
They know that we care. Jeff, just before we go to break, I want to go to line 4. I want to talk to Rita. Rita is in Quebec. Rita, go ahead, please.
Hello?
Hi, Rita, go ahead.
Who am I talking to right now?
This is Glenn.
Hey?
Glenn.
Gwen?
Glenn and Mark.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
How can we help you, Rita?
You're live on the air.
I was just listening to your program, and I was thinking about, child abuse, molestation, all that stuff there,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
I'm really concerned with that. And the thing is, my question is, I wonder about myself, because when I was young, I was not really molested or a child, but I was fascinated by. I'm so embarrassed to say this. I was embarrassed by. I had cousins, uncles, and I was very. Oh my God! I don't know how to say this. The penis, the male penis fascinated me.
You should be a young boy. It fascinated me too. The thing is that children are curious about sexuality. All of us have a natural curiosity. A child can have a very healthy interest in how the body works. But John Bradshaw does a demonstration where he talks about a little boy who comes in and says, runs in, Grandma, Grandpa, Mom and Dad are all in the living room, and he runs in and he says, "I've got a nose. I've got a nose." And they all go, "Yes, you do. Isn't he smart?" And then he comes back in and he goes, "Hey, I got a finger. I've got fingers." "Yes, well, congratulations. He's really good." "I've got a penis." And it's like, "Oh, you shameful kid. How dare you say that word out loud? How dare you talk about..." No, you don't talk about that. And children have a natural curiosity about themselves. A parent should have a healthy attitude towards looking at the child and answering their questions. The guidance is going to come from the people around you. You're talking about this in a family situation. You know what? That's the most normal place in the world for these questions to come up and for kids to express healthy curiosity.
Mm-hmm. And with that, we'll take our break, and when we come back, we'll go back to the phones and take your phone calls. More Living Clean right after this.
Statistics state that it is likely you know a victim of abuse. It could be a friend, a relative, a colleague. It could even be you. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. Please give them hope. Help us make it stop. Go to abusehurts.com and give to the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness.
Hi, I'm John Haynes. I'm the director of Vida Novus Treatment Center. We are dedicated to saving lives of the suffering addicts and alcoholics and their families. Our counselors provide one-on-one care and the attention that you need. There is never a wait. We have a room available for you now. Give us a call. We make treatment affordable. Your life is worth saving. Every life is worth saving.
Is someone else's drinking affecting your life? Does it make you feel angry?
Don't yell at me because you're mad at your mom. She's the drunk, not me.
Does it make you feel sorry for yourself?
Hey, Tanya's drinking again, and maybe next time.
Or does it even make you feel
Does
frightened?
Daddy have to drink so much?
No matter how you feel, we can help. We're Al-Anon family groups, and we know what it's like. Just call 1-888-4-AL-ANON. To help them, you have to help yourself first.
And welcome back to Living Clean. Glenn Allen, Mark Elliot. Something else I wanted to make note of too. We talked about the one program that the CCAA is putting on. I also wanted to make mention, Jeff, if you have this, if I haven't caught you off guard, it's also part of May being Sexual Violence Awareness Month, and that is. It's all part of Sexual Assault and Violence Intervention Services of Halton in partnership with Nina's Place, the Regional Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence Care Center of Halton, Joe Brandt, Halton Regional Police Services, Women Survivors Advisory Group. It's a half-day seminar. It's called Survivors Speak, and it's raising awareness about the prevalence of sexual violence, increasing service, system access for diverse and marginalized survivors of sexual violence, exploring innovative approaches to supporting survivors in their healing, and it's all taking place Wednesday, May 26th, here in the Oakville area. And if you want more information, how you can get a hold of Natalie, there's the phone number, and the email was up there as well. So if that is something that you would like to be part of, by all means, please get a hold of them. And I'll be speaking at that as giving the male survivor perspective. And really happy to be a part of that. Just switching gears for a second, we talked about abuse. Just want to slide over to back into the addiction and what have you. And I want to pose a question, and we were talking about this a little bit before the program. In Saskatchewan, there was a coach that was fired after he had kids 10 years old posing and drinking beer. I mean, you talk about, some people will laugh at that. Some people will think it's okay.
No, it's not okay. That's, this is not, I don't care if the kids are 10, I don't care if they're 17, I don't care if they're 18 years, 10 months. If they're not 19, you don't give a kid alcoholic beverages. That's the law. The law, and here's the crazy part of it, because people come at you all the time and they're trying to explain why, it's okay. I know my kids are going to go out and use drugs, so I'd rather them use it at home. Get a brain. You're out of your mind. The law is there for a reason. It's there to protect children. And amazingly, I say to people all the time, you need a license to have a dog, not to have a child.
Yeah.
I mean, the sad part is, kids are helpless. They're led by their peers. And you know what? They do, and they learn from mom and dad. That's the example. Mom and dad are the ones who set the rules. Mom and dad are the ones who set the boundaries. A kid who grows up in a home with healthy boundaries, regardless of how it is, they are going to learn healthy boundaries. One of the problems with people like you and me is we don't have healthy boundaries when we come into recovery. We have to relearn how to have those things. We have to relearn how to develop properly. I mean, if you've got a parent who is basically flouting the law, good luck for the kid.
Like what? And again, I mean, when I was young, I mean, we won a tournament at 15 years old, and they had champagne in there, and we had some beers and all that. These guys are 10.
I don't care if they're. I
understand what you're saying, but I mean, they're 10, and I don't really want to dwell on this part of it, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. I mean, how stupid can one be? Anyway,
stupid enough that if you get caught doing something like that, And you have to explain it to a judge. I've always judged this, Glenn. Anything that I do in my life, what am I going to think if I see it on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow? If I don't want to see it there, I don't want to do it. And that's a boundary. That's how you learn how to set boundaries. Parents have to recognize that regardless, I don't care if this was done when you were a little kid. I don't care if this was done in your family over the years. The law says you don't drink until you're 19.
And again, because if you put something in somebody's hands, the message that you're sending them
that's okay?
Is lasting.
Yeah.
Two things, and we're going to go to the phones, but two things that I want to touch on. One is, as an alcoholic, as an addict, as a gambling addict, whatever the case may be, we have a tendency in our addiction, and sometimes even as we're trying to get clean and sober, we're talking about the sabotaging, and how that really plays out, and how we have to make changes in the way we think in order to get clean and sober, not just dry, just not using, but in order to make those changes in our life.
Well, it's not fair if all you do is take a drug addict's drugs away. It's not fair if all you do is take the alcohol away from the alcoholic. If you don't teach them how to enjoy life without it, you haven't done anything. You've got a very upset person.
Yeah, because there's so many different things. I mean, the self-esteem or lack thereof.
Yeah.
You talk about fear, you talk about grieving, you talk about all these different things. And I don't know about anybody else, but when I was coming in, I felt like I didn't deserve anything, because those were it's about erasing the tapes that were played that I put into my own head. I mean, were there some other people that were responsible for part of that? Maybe, but really what I believed.
Well, this is one of the points with 12-step recovery that it resonates with people, is that you have to include others. One of the reasons why we are advised to get direction from a good friend, a good sponsor. Having a sponsor is one of the keys. I had a friend who was running an organization called the National Development and Research Institute in the United States, which is basically gathering all the data on recovery programs from the United States government, which is the armed services, the prisons. And he said, I asked him, if you could change one thing about 12-step recovery, what would it be? He said, I'd get rid of the 12 steps, I'd get rid of the traditions, and I'd put 3 words on every wall of every recovery center, and it would be, get a sponsor. Get a sponsor. Get someone to help you. Because what you're talking about directly, and that sense of understanding, comes in and through the other recovering person. In and through the other recovering addict, I learn how to develop real self-esteem. When I forgive you, when I look at you and you tell me your story and I forgive you, I learn how to forgive myself. In and through the other recovering person, I'm able to develop my skills, and I'm able to develop real feelings in myself, but I have to do it. I have to do it through the other recovering person.
Yeah, and look, we're not here to. I don't want to get into the whether 12 steps or whatever, because there's treatment centers, there's support groups, and there's all sorts of different ways to recover, and I mean that's all part and parcel of that, and yeah.
But you have to have trust.
Yeah,
you have to have someone.
And
that
again,
you trust.
that's where the abuse comes in, because there's how many people when they first come through the doors of any recovery really trust.
Not people who have been abused. No. Not at all.
Let's go to line 1. Mary's in Burlington. Mary, how you doing? Mary.
Hello.
Hi. Go ahead, please.
Hi. I'm not sure if this is actually appropriate to your topic, but
sure. Go ahead.
I had a question about my son.
Okay.
Some time ago, when he was about 7.5, there was an incident one night when his father came home after having drank quite a bit, and I asked him to sleep elsewhere, so he went and slept in my son's room, which isn't uncommon in our family. They all have big beds. I have sons, and so he went and slept. And about in the middle of the night, I heard him crying out, "Daddy, stop that! Don't do that!" And I went down, and the dad left. And the next morning, my son said to me, "Daddy was really funny last night. He must have thought it was you because he was trying to kiss me and put his finger in my bum." And well, the next day, needless to say, Daddy was gone. But by the time Children's Aid got around to it, he had forgotten about it. He's now 15, and he's struggling a little bit in school, much more than his brothers. And
I'm afraid we lost her.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. That's tough. I mean, it's certainly it's a conversation that one needs to have with. I'd love to follow up with you, Mary. Jeff, if you can put my information up on the phone line again, because Mary's in Burlington, and when you get a second, if you can put that up there, that'd be great. Mary, if you can, when the information comes back up on the screen, just write my information down, and I'd be happy to follow up with you on that. Okay. Pat on line 5 is in Ottawa. Pat, how are you?
Hello.
Hi, Pat. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm calling from Ottawa. I don't have a question, but I'm just calling because just basically to start talking, to tell my story. I am 49, and about 6 years ago, we started attending a very spirit-filled church, actually a Catholic church, and I was quite surprised to find out that that I was abused when I was young. I wasn't aware of it, but I started having memories come back, and it's been quite an incredible journey. Actually, during the Eucharist or communion, when the memories started coming back, it would not be like a whole memory, but it would be something that would sort of trigger a memory later on that night. And at first it was quite overwhelming, and I didn't want to believe it, and I sort of prayed my way through it, and the Lord would show me when I was young, when I would be remembering this and feel that I just couldn't handle it, and I would just push it down. But I also knew that it's kind of like what belongs to you, and our memories belong to us. I also knew that it was true. It's been about 5 years, I guess.
Pat, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Have you done anything about this?
I have. It was suggested that I go for professional help. I didn't want to go that route. I do talk to my husband. I don't share the details, but he knows who the person was that was responsible for that. No, I haven't. I find it difficult to talk about. I haven't gone for help, but as the
one of the keys, Pat, when you're looking for a good therapist is you got to find somebody that you feel comfortable with, and it's got to be somebody that you can relate to. Too often I hear people who don't go for help, and the reason is they're afraid. They're usually afraid that they're going to walk in there and get a judgmental jerk who's going to look at them and make ridicule of what they're dealing with. You have to feel comfortable with the person that you talk to, and the only way that's going to happen is when you interview them. I mean, we spend more time looking at a used car than we do looking at a good therapist. And I hate to say this, but this is the truth. There are many skilled people, and there are many, many professionals who deal with survivors of childhood sexual abuse who are amazingly gifted and willing to help you, but you have to be the one that opens the door. I'm sure your husband empathizes. I'm sure that the people in your group empathize, but you're not picking up the phone and calling because this is resolved. You're picking up the phone and calling because it still hurts.
Yeah, there's again, if Pat, we can do some follow up with you. I'd really like to do that with you if that's okay, because there's some, like Mark says, there's some people out in Ottawa that we can tie you up, or not tie you up with, but refer you to. And,
too often people don't look at it. You know, you're very vulnerable when you're in a position where you're hurting, and it's an issue like abuse or mental illness, and the person is incapacitated. They're unable to open up to somebody about this, and they're probably at the worst point when it comes down to making a decision. Mm-hmm. And they'll usually take the first person who's given to them. They'll take the psychiatrist. They'll go to the psychologist. You know, they may not be the right one. I mean, like I say, we spend more time looking at a good used car than we do looking at somebody who's going to help us to solve issues that are tearing us apart.
And the other part of that too is, you know, it's tough to put all that on your husband, because at the end of the day, he may need somebody to help him, because it's tough to hear that, and in some cases it's, you know, when you hear that, he needs somewhere
it's a funny
to
part.
debrief. But we have to go to break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll deal with that. We'll also go to Kathy, Craig, and Ray. Kathy, Craig, Dan, and Ray to finish out the show. Back with more Living Clean right after this.
Statistics state that it is likely you know a victim of abuse. It could be a friend, a relative, a colleague. It could even be you. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. Please give them hope. Help us make it stop. Go to abusehurts.com and give to the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness.
Hi, I'm John Haynes. I'm the director of Vida Novus Treatment Center. We are dedicated to saving lives of the suffering addicts and alcoholics and their families. Our counselors provide one-on-one care and the attention that you need. There is never a wait. We have a room available for you now. Give us a call. We make treatment affordable. Your life is worth saving. Every life is worth saving.
Is someone else's drinking affecting your life? Does it make you feel angry?
Don't yell at me because you're mad at your mom. She's the drunk, not me.
Does it make you feel sorry for yourself?
Hey, Tanya's drinking again, and maybe next time.
Or does it even make you feel
Does
frightened?
Daddy have to drink so much?
No matter how you feel, we can help. We're Al-Anon family groups, and we know what it's like. Just call 1-888-4-AL-ANON. To help them, you have to help yourself first.
And welcome back to Living Clean. Glenn Allen, Mark Elliot. We're going to go to Kathy on line 4. Kathy, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, I have a problem. I've got a 14-year-old, but she's not living with me right now. She's in care, and she is really hooked on drugs and booze. She's very, very violent. She's been taken out of the home several times because she smashes up the house. She's abusive to me. Mm-hmm. She also has selective mutism, so it's very difficult for her to talk to people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we've had groups in here, but the law says once they're 12, they can live wherever they want, and if they don't want any help offered, they can decline at any time, and we've been through that. And I don't get this law, and I'm really concerned about her. And the CAF wants her to maybe see her friends even though she's in care. Mm-hmm. Well, to me, that's not right, because her friends are the ones getting her into the drugs and you know, her carryings on. And I'm very, very concerned about her. I'm concerned about suicide. And she hasn't, her father's dead, and that was from an OD. Her mother's hasn't been around. We haven't seen her or anything from her in 10 years. Yeah. And I don't know how to help her. I would like to see her get into AA, because I know that program works, and if she can get a sponsor.
Kathy, how old is she again?
How old is she? She's 14.
She's 14. Yeah. Can I ask you what city you're in?
I'm just north of Peterborough.
You're north of Peterborough. Okay.
See, the thing is that you know, number one, you're getting caught in the twilight zone, and this is something that happens to parents with drug-addicted kids all the time. And the kid is between the ages of 12 and 16, and they know there's a problem. They know there's something wrong, but at the same time, the law is useless. It's almost useless. It's worse than useless. There was a time where the law was too
Youth
severe.
Criminal Justice Act?
Yes. You know, there was a time where, and I can also add the Mental Health Act. There is a real problem now for parents, and one of the things that I advocate for is for, you know, a law that is going to be reasonable to help those who are watching helplessly, watching someone kill themselves, have some resource that, you know, some way of being able to make an effective intervention legally, you know, in a kid's life. You know, this kid is getting kicked around. I mean, she's going between, you know, a bad place and worse, and there's literally almost nothing that Kathy can do. Yeah. I mean, and the other thing too is you're in an area where the resources are meager when you get outside of a city like Toronto.
Actually, I have some contacts up there. Kathy, can we put you on hold and let Doug get your information, and I'll give you a call tomorrow, okay?
Sure, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, make sure we put Kathy back on hold, okay? And Doug's going to get her information. And we'll go to line 6. Craig's in Welland. Hey, Craig. Craig, line 6.
Thank you.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good, go ahead, please.
Okay, I just had more of a comment tonight. I really enjoyed a lot of the conversation that's been going on tonight, and
Good,
my heart
thank you.
goes out to this lady Kathy and her daughter there.
Yeah.
I can really kind of understand and identify with what she's going through. I'm a member of a 12-step program,
okay,
and I've been sober now for just over 18 months.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Thank you very much. I really like what you said about a sponsor, and I'm not just going to say that a sponsor is necessary, but I believe a sponsor is vital to recovery.
I don't think a person can do it. You know, there's a survey, I read a doctoral thesis that was done at Rutgers University, and the lady was looking at the effectiveness of sponsorship. And she divided sponsors into 4 categories. Number 1 was putative. You go to a group and you say, I need a sponsor. Somebody hands you a phone number, and later on somebody will say, do you have a sponsor? You'll pull out your card and you got a phone number. You've never called it, but you got a sponsor. That's putative. Second is program oriented. That's a person who takes you through the steps of recovery and works with you. They may even be a drill sergeant type. Third type is someone that you are going to meet over the course of your time in recovery. You're going to meet somebody who you're going to be sitting there one day and you're going to say, hey, he's talking about me. And you're going to get into a conversation. You're going to ask that person to be a sponsor. The fourth type of sponsor is pretty much all of the above. And what they found in their research was that about 80% of those who were successful for a year, staying clean off drugs and alcohol, 80% had a type 3 or type 4 sponsor. 99% of those who failed had type 1. I mean, you know, if you want to see the effectiveness of how this works, and the statistics bear me out on this, you know, the key is get someone that you can identify with. And this works for people who are dealing with addictions, but you know what? It also works with people who are in support groups like yours, who are working with issues like sexual abuse.
It's mentors. It's whether it's a sponsor, mentor. Craig, thanks very much for the phone call. We're running out of time, and there's a couple of things I want to hit on here. And what I had in my recovery, especially early on, and I still have it today, and I call them mentors because they come from different parts. Some of it's recovery, other is spiritual, others is, you know, I have mentors and sponsors, whatever you want to call them. And it is, Craig, you hit the nail on the head. It's vital. If you want to fail, then don't have one.
Right.
Okay.
You know, the key
Something that's really important, though, and this has come up so many different times, and you talk about stigma, and this has come up. We've talked about it on the show before,
Right.
and it's tough enough to come out and talk about an addiction. It's tough enough for anyone to come out and talk about their addiction. But when a person is battling an addiction and all of a sudden you're dealing with the crystal meth, and you're dealing with whether it's an HIV, whether there's some type of sexually transmitted disease, and you're a male, in particular, when a male is dealing with that and he is also gay, I know, have dealt with a lot of different guys in Toronto, and I know there are some guys out there who are suffering. And the crystal meth is the drug du jour. How do these guys who are
How do they deal with the fear, the stigma? How do they deal with?
And where they're sitting in denial. I mean, how can you look in the camera, Mark, and tell them to? We have 4 minutes, and there's guys out there sitting in denial. There's people out there. How can you help them?
Okay, look, when it comes down to dealing with something, and you're bringing up a whole lot. You're giving me 4 minutes to talk about it
because I know you're professional and you can do it.
Okay, when we're talking about a person who is using crystal meth, face the fact you've got a problem, you're addicted. Don't even try and tell me you're using it recreationally. That isn't on the table, okay? By the time you get to cocaine, heroin, crystal meth, it's not a recreational choice. You're not on the same level as somebody who's smoking weed. Somebody who's using crystal, when you use crystal, basically you're taking your brain and ripping the wiring out. All the inhibitions that you've had are gone, and suddenly you are the god of sex. You are absolutely overwhelmingly beautiful, and everybody wants you. The tragic part of this is that people who are using crystal end up becoming incredibly promiscuous. They end up picking up any number of diseases. They practice unsafe sex. You're a fool. I don't know. There seems to be a thing with just about everybody today has learned. You practice safe sex. If you're going to have it, you use a condom. When people are on crystal, they're dealing with people who are absolutely incredibly promiscuous, and they're terrified to go to the doctor for fear that the doctor is going to tell them they've got one of those big diseases. And of course, it's the old kids game of, if I don't look, it ain't really happening. Well, guess what it is? And the scary part of this is, I watch some of the brightest and the best, and I watch them suffer. I watch them deal with problems that could have been dealt with effectively had they have sought help in time. There's a big fear about going to sexually transmitted disease clinics. I know when I went, and oh yeah, that's right, I'm one of those guys who'll admit, yes, I had a sexually transmitted disease. Yes, I had to go to the clinic. Guess what? When I got there, I found I was terrified somebody would see me when I went in. When I got there, I found out I knew everybody.
It's true.
This is the crazy part of it. We suffer, and at the same time, when you get over the stigma and when you actually reach out for the help, it is there. Amazingly, there are people there who will help. Here's the thing, when it comes down to addictions, when it comes down to sexually transmitted diseases, when it comes down to dealing with sexual abuse, the key to getting a person to get help is confidentiality. As long as they have the trust, and they can trust that they can speak without fear, then they can get the help they need.
Okay. All right. We just jumped from a minute to 30 seconds really fast. Who's doing that one? Where are we at? We're at our time? No? We're having problems with that, Mark. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much for being here. And when you watch Living Clean, always know that the advice and not so much the. Oh, now I'm out of time. Next week on the show, Du Bois, Rick Osborne, Marty Cosgrove. Next week.
Living Clean has been brought to you by Vita Novus Treatment Center and Addictions 911. Living Clean is a presentation of the Canadian Center for Abuse Awareness.